welcome you to the Red Door Church. Thank you for coming to this special event, this Creation Care event. Sorry for the delay in getting started. These are the sorts of little wrinkles when you plan an event like this. There's always a million little dangling threads and things going on. And so thank you for being patient with me and with us as we try and get started here. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. And my job as we start this event is to kind of tell you a few things about the event, about the topic, why we felt energized to do this and to think about these things, and also to kind of help you get oriented. Many of you have already kind of made your way around, and so maybe giving you information that you already have, but I feel like the right thing to do is to kind of try and orient us as we get started. So let me say again, thank you for coming. I know many of you came some distance and perhaps even at some sacrifice, and we're grateful that you're here. So my name is Josh Moore, and I'm the pastor of the Red Door Church. I've been in South Royalton for about 10 years now, and I'm just grateful to be here, grateful to be a part of this community, and to know many of you, and some of you I'm just now meeting, and that's a part of one of the goals actually of this event, is to network and to help you get to know people that are like-minded and thinking about similar things. So I hope you do that. Don't just, be in a corner by yourself today. I hope you'll mingle and interact with folks. So thank you for coming. Well, 2 years ago, I approached my church about going on a sabbatical because I was in need of some deep refreshment. I applied for a grant through the Lilly Foundation and amazingly was awarded a grant to go away for 4 months. Many in my congregation were very happy about that, sneaking away for 4 months. I'm kidding. And to do some amazing things. A part of that funding that the Lilly Foundation gave us was given to put on an event like this. So I want to start by thanking the Lilly Foundation for enabling us to put on this event. So we'll start there. And as we get going, kind of jumping into the material here a little bit, and again, why we want to do this, I want to read a poem. It's a poem by a woman named Mildred Boyce, and maybe it will resonate with you as we start here. She was a Vermont woman who lived on a farm, spent a lot of time outdoors and just thinking about nature and about God. And she writes these words, and maybe it'll resonate with many of you. What do you bring from the woods today? I bring sweet memories, long to stay. What did you hear as you walked along? I heard one bird's half-muted song. And was there no other sound to hear? A rippling brook ran sweetly near. Where did you stand in long amaze? By the tallest of trees, as one who prays. Was there a sign your heart to ease? A room of soft moss, close circled by trees? Was there a song in that holy wood? A white throat sang, "The Lord, He is good." And what do I see in your tranquil face? That I have drawn breath in a high, holy place. Beautiful words. And this is captured in a book that's downstairs. Again, we've got a book table. If you would like to consider looking, maybe buying something, everything's really discounted. But that poem is in one of the books downstairs. So a really beautiful, beautiful poem. Which one? Oh, it's called I Love the Daffodil, I believe is the name of it. Why I Love the Daffodil, something like that. She was a lover of daffodils. Anyway, so I was visiting with one of her grandchildren recently, and he gifted me that wonderful book. And it's a compilation of some of her writings. Again, she was a farm wife who loved the outdoors, especially daffodils, and was known in her neighborhood for the daffodils that grew beside the road. And some of her poetry captures for me, I think, some of what I experience in the outdoors, and maybe that's true of many of you. So like the woman who wrote that poem, next slide, Felicia, please. most people enjoy the outdoors. Many of you hunt, fish, hike, run, maybe ride your bike, live on a farm, just spend time outdoors. Or perhaps you just enjoy sitting on your porch and listening to the birds. At bare minimum, all of us have had the experience, I think, of being wowed by creation. We've stood on the edge of the Grand Canyon or the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, like I did a couple of summers ago in Colorado. And we had to pick our jaws up off the ground. We looked up at the starry night sky in utter amazement. Or maybe you're just one of the many who go to the coast year after year to find refreshment in sitting next to the Atlantic as its predictable, rhythmic waves roll peacefully in and out. I'm assuming all of us here love the outdoors, and that's probably a big part of why we're here. Well, I'm a committed Christian, and presume that many of you here are as well, or at least a believer in some kind of higher power or intelligence that made this absolutely breathtaking universe. It's okay if you're not, if you don't subscribe to any of those positions or fit in neatly into any category. That's okay. We're thankful that you're here, wherever you're coming from. But as a Christian, I see the fingerprints of God on everything. And I think that was captured in that lovely poem that I read a moment ago. One of the writers of the New Testament puts it this way: for God's invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and his divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. Many of us see the handiwork of God, the fingerprints of God all around us, and we're amazed. And perhaps that's why you like to be outdoors so much, is that. Next slide, please. The writers of the Hebrew Bible, too, see God in creation. One psalm in the Hebrew Bible says these words: the heavens are declaring the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Psalm 104 is one of my favorite examples of how in the Jewish tradition they see God in all of creation. Psalm 104 says this: O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom have you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Here is the sea, great and wide, which teems with creatures innumerable, living things both small and great. There go the ships and Leviathan, which you formed to play in it. They all look to you to give them their food in due season. When you give it to them, they gather it up. And when you open your hand, they're filled with good things. And it goes on and on. Psalm 104, the end says, may the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in all of his works, who looks on the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountains and they smoke. So when you read the Bible, you get the sense that God, not only do we, his creatures, but God himself delights in the world he has made. So then why do so many of us avoid this topic? I'm speaking for myself here. Why do we often avoid advocating, so to speak, for nature? Why do we struggle to talk about this at least in many religious circles, especially those maybe in what I would call a theologically conservative Christian circles struggle with this topic? Thank you. I was recently talking about this topic with a student at Vermont Law and Graduate School just next door, and the student, along with me, lamented that they had never, in their entire lifetime of attending church, ever heard a sermon that focused on the topic of creation care. In their entire life, never heard a sermon. That's not an isolated experience. Sandra Richter, the Robert H. Gundry Chair of Biblical Studies at Westmont College, she actually wrote a book that's downstairs. Sorry, part of my job this morning is to kind of do all this sort of like, hey, here's a book kind of thing. She wrote this wonderful book called Stewards of Eden, and she writes in the introduction of that book, and I'll just read it for you right out of the book here. When I was teaching Old Testament at Wheaton College, Professor Kristen Page and I won a faith and learning grant to launch the first ever Wheaton course designed specifically to integrate the Bible and biology in an inquiry into environmental stewardship. Our title was Environmental Concern for the Creation, the Bible and Biology. As professors are wont to do, we opened the first class with a seemingly innocent, quote, icebreaker. Introduce yourself to the class, tell us your name, your major, and why you took this course. Like most teachers, I've deployed a conversation starter like this dozens of times in different classrooms. But by the time this one was over, I was stunned, she writes. Why? Because every single one of our 20-something students voiced the same testimony. Quote, I've always loved the outdoors, camping, hiking, bird watching, wild ponies on an island, the common dolphins in the Channel Island Sound, the beauty of the Ozarks, and so on. I've always felt God's presence and pleasure when I pursued those loves. But as a Christian, I didn't think I was allowed to incorporate that love or advocacy for those loves into my Christian identity. So I was really excited when you offered this course. Every student, she says, echoed that same testimony. Every well-educated, socially active, theologically committed young adult sitting in that classroom felt they were not allowed to advocate for the beauty and sanctity of God's creation and still call themselves Christian. She gives three primary reasons for the church's neglect of this topic. I'm going to touch on those really quickly, try and be brief here. Politics, certainly, is one example. She writes this, why has the church, historically the moral compass of our society, gotten so lost on this topic? One reason is politics. Not kingdom politics, but American and international politics. I think most of us would concur that the traditional political allies of the church are not the traditional political allies of environmental concern. If you're pro-life, just to give one example, not assuming everybody here holds these views, okay? So don't take it that way. If you're pro-life, it is assumed that you cannot also be pro-environment. If you're a patriot, you supposedly cannot also be a conservationist. Or to be more forthright, she writes, in the U.S., if you're an environmentalist, it's assumed that you're a Democrat. And Democrats supposedly are not pro-life. If you're a Republican, it is assumed that you cannot also be pro-environment. In other words, somehow environmental advocacy has been pigeonholed into a particular political profile and has become guilty by association. But of course, Christians are first the citizens of heaven, and therefore our alliances and our value system are not defined by American politics. Rather, our value system, aka holiness, is defined by the Holy One. And as citizens of his kingdom, ultimately there is only one set of politics that Christ's followers should be concerned about: kingdom politics. Next slide. So that's one reason. Another reason, she says, why many Christians don't feel that they can talk about these things is that a lot of the pollution is out of sight for us. Our trash and the problems created by a lack of concern for creation are not things that we see directly here in our part of the world. Sandra Richter again writes, we, the Western majority voice, are largely sheltered from the impact of environmental degradation on the global community. We don't see how the unregulated use of land and water by big business decimates the lives of the marginalized. We've not witnessed the sterilization of the fertile fields of Punjab, India, at the hands of the unrestrained industrial agriculture and social collapse that it's caused. We've not stood on the shores of various rivers and seen and smelled the results of unrelenting abuse of this immense and immensely important estuaries via untreated industrial waste, raw sewage, and incomplete cremations. She goes on and on and on with all these examples. But that's one reason why we struggle with this, is because we don't see so much of it. A third reason that she gives in her book, again, I'm sort of trying to express perhaps some of the reasons why we don't talk about it and maybe some of why we should have this conversation, right? Why we're putting on this event. A third reason that she gives is eschatology. Eschatology, that's a fancy word that means the doctrine of the last things, of the end times, okay? Teachings about those things. There's a lot of dystopianism in our world today, a lot of fear about the end, and a lot of talk about the end. And especially in Christian circles, so much of that doesn't lead to a kind of concern for creation. She writes this: the theological posture taught by many in the church is that the created order is bound only for destruction, to be replaced, thrown away, and a new one to be created, essentially. Subsequently, many devoted followers of Jesus have come to believe that it's ethically appropriate to use the earth's resources as aggressively as possible to accomplish what really matters, namely the conversion of souls. The end result is that the church, particularly the evangelical wing of the church, which that's my home, for those of you that are wondering, has inadvertently dismissed the issue of environmental stewardship as peripheral or even completely alien to the theological commitments of the Bible. In other words, that was kind of a mouthful. In other words, many believe that this world is destined for complete destruction and annihilation, and therefore we can use it as we please. Okay? Do whatever we want to with it. To use a fancy theological term, some have what's called an instrumentalist view of the creation, that it was created by God solely to meet human needs. We use it, abuse it for our purposes because that's why God gave it to us. However, scholars like Douglas Moo see biblical support for a renewing of creation at the end of all things, as opposed to a replacement of the creation. In other words, at the final judgment, God will bring about a restoration and renewal of the present earth rather than an annihilation and replacement of it. Doug talks about this. Another book for you? In his book, Creation Care, which is on sale downstairs again. Sorry. I don't have a gift at that, so I'm sorry if that's really annoying. That's not my gift. I'm just trying to do my thing here. If Moo and others are correct, then the earth will endure. The earth will be the home of all God's people in the new heavens and the new earth. Therefore, this earth will be our home. Therefore, we should be quick to care for it now, right? I would add a fourth reason to her already very compelling list. So again, I'm kind of rolling through Sandra Richter's reasons here for why maybe many Christians avoid this topic. And I'm going to add a fourth reason to her strong list, and that is a concern for earth worship. Concern for earth worship. I think many committed Christians are concerned that our love for a created thing may quickly turn to worship. After all, this is the pattern of human history, is it not? You name it, and people have at some point or another worshipped it. And that is because we were made for worship. Even atheists cannot get away from this point. G.K. Chesterton has helpfully pointed out that when people stop believing in God, they don't start believing in nothing. They believe in anything, quite frankly. Whatever it may be, nation, family, money, work, nature, state, people will believe in it and worship it. Robert Barron notes in a recent article in First Things that earth worship takes us back to a pagan worldview. He writes this, quote, "For the ancient Greeks and Romans, the gods were basically personifications of natural necessities, earth, sky, fire, sea, the death and rebirth of vegetation. And if we consult the symbolic stories the ancients told about these deities, we see how perceptive they were. The earth is beautiful and lethal. The sky is lovely, and death can rain down from it. The sea is sometimes placid and alluring, and at other times it will drown you without pity. The point is that nature is wonderful, powerful, but finally indifferent to us. Therefore, when we move beyond appreciating and protecting nature and begin to worship it, we place ourselves in the hands of a terrible and impersonal master." End quote. So that's another concern I would add to the list. The opening chapters of Genesis reveal to us a different origin story. It declares, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it shows us that all of nature and us have a common father, making nature our sister, not our mother. And the article talks about this. The opening chapters of Genesis again declare, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That shows us that all of nature and us have a common father. Nature is our sister. Barron continues, but nature is our sister, not our mother. Thank God, he writes, precisely because nature is impersonal and indifferent to us. Our sacrifices to her will never be enough. They will only diminish us. The good news of the Bible is that the true God is a person who loves us, and any sacrifice made to him redounds finally to our benefit. Contrary to popular opinion, I'm going somewhere with all this. Thank you for hanging with me here in my rather long introduction. Contrary to popular opinion, Christian faith offers us theological and practical resources for caring for the environment. They do not lead to, and those resources and those ideas don't lead to suffering. In fact, if we will embrace the way of the Christian scriptures, which I certainly hope everyone here does or will, we will find a world that flourishes as people live simply and sacrificially. This is the vision of the scriptures. Our guest speakers and our breakout session leaders are here to talk about some of the things we can be doing to care for the creation God's way. So that's my little introduction, okay? Some of maybe why we avoid this, and maybe a gentle pushback as to some of the, what I might say, stereotypes that are out there about this topic. All of our breakout session leaders here today are committed Christians. But they all come from different traditions and backgrounds and are going to nuance things differently, which I think is really beautiful kind of tapestry that we have here this morning. But they all share a burden for God's beautiful created world, and I hope everyone here will be blessed by their talks. I'm sure that you will be blessed by the things they have to say. So really quick, some housekeeping stuff now that I've got that introduction out of the way. Some housekeeping stuff. So did everyone on your way in get a little bag and brochure? Hope you did. And that you signed up for a breakout session. If you didn't get one, let us know. We can get you one. They're down in the foyer as you come in. Why don't we quickly take a look at the brochure now? Okay, just very quickly, we'll open this up and briefly walk through it, and then we'll have in a moment Matt come up and share some things that are on his heart. So you'll see the various breakout sessions there, and what we're going to do is, so all of you signed up as you came in, and based on size, we're going to locate you in different places throughout the building. So I'm going to go down and take a look at, biggest to smallest, so to speak, and then after Matt's talk, I'll come back up here really quickly and tell you where all the breakout sessions are going to be, and we'll have a little intermission, and then you can make your way there. So take a look at your brochure. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly, so I'm going to ask our breakout session leaders, not going to put you on the spot to stand up and say anything, but just kind of raise your hand. We've got number 1, Eating to the Glory of God with Dominique Caraveau. There he is there. Number 2 is with Amos Post, and it's going to be talking about solar and battery systems. There's Amos over there. And Mr. Jerry Barcelo will be talking about honeybees and beekeeping. There's Jerry. And Mr. Irva Barnes will be talking about theory and practice of biblical land stewardship. There's Irva in the back. And Mrs. Amy Bowen will be talking about loving our neighbor by living simply. And there's Amy. Okay, thank you. So really grateful to all of you. Thank you for being here and putting some time and energy into your talks. If you have any questions about all of that, just see me or my wife, Megan. Not sure. Megan, are you up here? No, I think she's probably downstairs watching kids and doing other things. Ask us. We can direct you and help you out with anything you might need to know.